Hey everybody, welcome back to The Hunt. I am really excited to share my guest with you today. She is an absolute amazing force to be reckoned with. Her name is Darcy Bingham. She's a great friend, a dear friend of mine, and she really lives her life under the lens of helping others, whether they know it or not, realize their own potential. And you know, I've talked about that at length on this show and in my upcoming book, From Stuck to Unstoppable. So this is such in our wheelhouse for The Hunt. So welcome to the show, Darce.
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. It's great to have you here. So we have had so many amazing conversations just in between us, and I'm so excited to bring this to this audience because I always walk away from my conversations with you just, my heart is like overflowing with joy, and at the same time, I feel like I grew as a person from the inside out at every turn. So
likewise, we love having our good conversations, our walks and talks.
We do, for sure. So let's just, to get to where you are now, to be able to really contribute to the people in your life and the businesses that you help, it has to start from somewhere. Right. So let's just level set with the audience real quick, and just in terms of just where did this come from? I know you have a background in education, and you're, and I think I can say this on national TV, but you are a complete badass in every sense of the word. So let's just talk about you for a second.
Well, I think it's interesting. I was reflecting on that earlier, and I have to go back to my high school yearbook. For whatever reason, grew up with this invisible backpack that you'd have a conversation with somebody and you gather wisdom from all these different places, but when they're talking with you, you just reach back there and here it is. Mm-hmm. And it always just seemed to come out the way that people could identify with. And in my high school yearbook, I have several references, multiple references. My nickname was Dr. Darce. So
very apropos, very apropos.
So, whether it was, an appointment with the doctor, I need to speak to the doctor. So I've been doing it for a long time. I don't think that there was any formal education around it. Have gathered quotes and readings from all different cultures. Like to listen to elders that have been in my life, who all seem to have these little bits of wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I love learning about what works for people and just gathering all those bits of information and being able to recall them or share them in the right moment. I think that's...
And it's a gift, I have to say, because
it's a blessing for sure.
It is. And I think that sometimes we're given those gifts or we go through things in life to be able to empathize more with people, to be able to not solve everything for people, but to lead them down that direction. And it's for them to find for themselves, but you lead them there.
Yeah. And I think one of the big parts of having a conversation of consequence is holding the mirror up for people. Right? Just letting them see themselves, letting them find their own inner wisdom, right? And rephrasing something or having them pull out and see the bigger picture. Yeah. Because a lot of times we get so deep into our stuff, right? And we see all these arms and legs and, the arms of the octopus, if you will, but where's the ocean? Where's the reef that you're sitting in? How do you fit into that ecosystem? I think is really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we get so bogged down and we wallow in the things that maybe we don't really need to be wallowing in, right? Yeah. So I remember one of the first times you and I had just, some time together, you shared with me what was called the Sullivan Rule. And I thought that was so great because, and I think the context around it was in a marriage, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't.
So let's talk to the audience about that, because I think everybody can learn from this because let's just go into it. So.
Well, we were talking about relationships, and when my husband and I were early in our marriage, having a dinner.
And what are you at, 30 years now or something?
31 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
congratulations.
It's fantastic.
It's a rare, it's rare these days.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to stay happily married, hang out with happily married people.
Yeah.
Right?
Well said.
It's also a rule, right?
Yeah.
So we had dinner with this couple who at that time had been married 26 years, and we happened to be having dinner on their anniversary. And they are the Sullivans, that's their last name.
Okay.
And we asked them for a tip. What, give us part of the secret, share some of your secret with us. And they looked at each other and they started laughing. And basically, they shared that one of the things you need to remember when one of the partner or one of the people is telling a story is it doesn't really matter to the listener if it was Aunt Mabel or Aunt Mildred, or if it was your uncle's Corvette, or if it was actually a Corvair. And you didn't need to correct that
3
person.
o'clock versus 2:40.
Right.
Doesn't
It wasn't
matter.
Tuesday, it was Friday, right?
Yeah.
So we have this tendency to correct one another because we know the narrative. And it really doesn't matter to the person who's hearing the story. And all it does is interrupt your partner. So being
And it
aware.
disrespects the partner.
It does. It can.
Right? So
Yes.
so why school
Right.
whoever, whether it's a teammate, a spouse, a friend, like
Right.
why make them feel
Right. And let them
less-
shine.
right.
Don't interrupt their stage.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love
that's the
that.
Sullivan
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah, so I
we
mean-
try to remember that.
Exactly.
And I don't need to say their names. Actually, it doesn't matter. But when one of us will be chatting and one of us does this to the other, my husband and I will say, "Okay, Mr. Sullivan." He's like, "All right, you're right. Sorry."
And that goes back to, I mean, so you're big into personal growth and really, the habits around that create just the best versions of ourselves, basically, right? So so in that situation, I mean, did it immediately click with you, or was it a learned behavior? And it continues to be a learned behavior. Is that accurate?
31 years later, we're still doing it every once in a while,
Yeah.
right? You can't resist. But
Yeah.
I think we also started laughing.
Yeah.
Say, "Oh yeah, guilty. I do that.
Yeah.
We've done that."
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
but what makes us
the
do that?
friendly reminders are good.
Yeah, but what makes us do that as human beings? Like, because you think about it, you're like, oh my God, why was I so petty about that? Or why did I have to take away their shine?
Or we could say it's about integrity and telling the truth, right? So I guess it's kind of a teeter-totter, right?
I guess there's a spectrum there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, so, okay, well, that's one good example. So how did you come up with just the conversations of consequence?
People who come back later, you have a conversation, excuse me, you have a conversation, and 2 years later, someone comes back to you, or you happen to run into them, say, "I have to thank you about that one time when we were walking on the pier in San Francisco and you told me the Sullivan rule, because it's really played out well for me and it's really changed how I interact with people." And it's that feedback loop that sometimes it's 9 years later. You get,
That's
I
incredible.
got an email from a former student once that said, 9 years ago we had a conversation of tremendous consequence at a conference that we were at. Say that like 3 times fast.
Right.
And he said, "I don't know if you realize how important it was, but I've had your business card in my desk drawer for 9 years. I did everything that we talked about. What do I do now?"
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. But he followed back up, and we had some more really great conversations. And he sold his company, and my husband had sold
That is
his company.
impact.
Yeah. And he's like, "Now that we've sold it, what do we do?" So.
And so then you just started curating and becoming basically a collector of
Yes.
stories.
Yes. And every once in a while, the story can be repeated in another context. You
Yep.
reach out into that backpack, and yeah, they're fun.
And which high school student, by the way, thinks about that? Like my invisible backpack. I mean, your brain, it goes to different places, which is so fun.
Well, people that say, "Well, where did that come?" I don't know. It's just reach back, there it was.
Yeah, and grab it.
Old soul wisdom. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, to that point though, it's like you might say something to somebody in the moment, but it might not resonate for, down the road. right? But I know every time, I mean, I've used the Sullivan Rule over and over again in the work environment, in a personal environment with my kids,
Right.
you know, so it does. You can really take it and translate it into your life in meaningful
Yes.
ways.
Very much so.
Yeah, and so we've got a lot to talk about, but well, hold on one second. So we've got a list of consequences to go through. So hang in there with us, everybody. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back with Darcy Bingham and talking about conversations with consequences. I'm Trish. You're watching The Hunt. Stay tuned.